Hi everybody, I'm JT. Welcome to another video from us here at Campervan Journey. So today's video is all about our latest trip costs. We come back from our most recent trip to France in the last few weeks, and we've had a lot of comments and questions asking us about how much it costs. So sat down, got all the information together, and Harry and I are just going to talk you through how much that whole trip and adventure costed. Remember, if you enjoy the videos that we're putting together, you can watch more of them by clicking the link up here, and we'd be really grateful if you click the link down here to subscribe and just follow us on our journey. And also remember to hit the like buttons. But let's get into it now. So travelling with a camper van is, first of all, it's not cheap. There's a lot of perceptions that it is a cheap way to go on holiday. It's not necessarily cheap, but I think you get so much more from the experience of being able to travel away in one of these fantastic vans. So we're sat talking to you today from our Volkswagen California, and we've just clicked over 20,000 miles in this van, and in the time that we've owned it, probably at least 10,000 of those miles have been on great trips and adventures that we've made around Europe and the UK. So it's
not just shopping.
Not just shopping, and that's the thing, we use this van as our day-to-day van as well, so it's not just parked up on our drive waiting to go on an adventure for 2 weeks every year. It's our family vehicle and we use it all the time. But our most recent adventure was for about 2.5 weeks, just over 2 weeks in France. We travelled all the way around the France, and remember, if you haven't seen them already, there's a link up here to some of the videos from that trip. But we started in the Burgundy region, drove down to Sarlat in the Dordogne, and then back up to the Loire Valley, covering in total just under 1,800 miles in that just over 2 weeks. So, cost-wise, it was a bit of an interesting one this year because we had some extra costs that we didn't have or haven't had previously, and I'll talk about those in due course, but because of the timings, because of what was going on with COVID, we only made our booking right at the last minute. So I think it was about 2 weeks before we actually decided to go, wasn't it, when the restrictions were lifted and we thought we were going to be able to travel. What we'd already done is we'd had our booking for the Eurotunnel booked previously, and we'd actually had that booked from February.
Really?
And so we'd consistently push that back because restrictions meant we weren't able to travel. So that's the first aspect of our cost. So cost number one is the Eurotunnel crossings. Now, Eurotunnel crossings obviously depend on when you go, what size of vehicle you're in, what time of day, what day of the week. We always tend to travel late on a Friday night, so Friday night, Saturday morning. So we're out of peak time, but obviously travelling on a weekend, and we'll always return on that time as well. So we haven't got, because of our commitments with work and school, we haven't got the flexibility to go on a Tuesday or Wednesday like some people would have, and that would help bring your cost down. So our total return trip costs for Eurotunnel this year was £332, and that was pretty much split right down the middle for outward and return journey. So £332 was the first cost. The second cost, which would relate into travel costs and the actual cost of getting there and moving around, and this is one thing that sometimes people forget, is fuel. If you're going to travel 1,780 miles, which is what we did, you're going to use quite a lot of fuel, and we did use quite a lot of fuel.
Stopped off a lot.
I said we used quite a lot of fuel, but having counted up the stops that we did, we only actually refuelled 5 times, which actually included the full tank of fuel that we left the UK with. And at the time when we were driving, when we were in France, fuel was actually cheaper in France than over here. So it was around about 10 to 15 euros a litre, 10 to 15 cents per litre less than the equivalent as to what it would be over here. So, and that's often been the case for a long time, that fuel is a little bit cheaper in France for diesel. So our total fuel costs, and this is adding up all the including the full tank of fuel that we left the UK with, came to just over £315. So that was £315 worth of fuel, but we travelled just under 1,800 miles, and we did on average around about 35 miles per gallon, which for a fully loaded vehicle that weighs 2.5 ton, 2.5 to 3 ton, I mean, I think that's really good. So, and one of the beautiful things that we've got in this van, again, I've talked about it in one of my other videos, this van is fitted as an option with adaptive cruise control. So what I tend to do is when we're on the auto routes, turn the adaptive cruise on, set it to around about 70 miles an hour, and then you've got nice steady cruise, and that's one of the things that really does help with giving us better economy on those longer trips. So we've just got 2 things so far, and we're up to, what do we reckon we're up to? 315 plus 332? What's your maths like, Harry?
About 1,100.
No, it's not that much yet. No, so 332 plus 315 is about 640-ish pounds at the moment. 640, 650. Okay, but don't worry, there's plenty more to come. Okay, so the third thing that relates to travelling, and this is something that we took out on one of our vans recently, is we've got a tag that sits on the inside of the windscreen. I'll show you a picture now. But then this dart tag through a company called Immovis enables us to pay for our auto toll
without having to stop,
which is brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we arrive at the toll booths.
Saves us ages.
It does save you ages. So whereas everybody else is queuing over on the right hand side, often on the far left hand side there's generally 2 types of tag booths. So ones that you have to slow down to and basically stop, but it won't beep and then the gate will open, and others that you can actually go through at 30 kilometers an hour, so you don't actually have to stop at all. So as long as you drive through slowly, it will register, beep, and then drive through. But it does save you so much time. It doesn't save you any cost, but it saves you a load inconvenience. And I reckon over the space of a 2-week trip, and certainly the distance that we're doing, you're probably saving an hour and a half just in time that you're not sat queuing waiting to go through. Because on some days, that some of the booths were really busy, weren't they? But there's always that little bit of wariness that when you arrive at the first one, you drive off the Eurotunnel.
Does it still have money?
Will it still work? Yeah. And it's just so for those of you who haven't used it, and perhaps I'll do a video just explaining how it works another time, but the Immovis tag is basically linked to, it sits on the inside of the windscreen, it's linked to your bank account. You pay an annual subscription fee, which I think is around about €5, and then you only pay a fee for each month that you use it in, and it's a nominal fee, and then you just get your costs deducted, and the costs are the same as if you were paying at the booth itself. So as I said, it doesn't save you anything financially, but it does save you a lot in convenience, and we wouldn't be without one now. It's brilliant, really, really good. So we had the bill through from that the other day, because they send you an invoice and tell you what the total cost is going to be. Also breaks down, gives you the time and where all of those booths were. So it's quite interesting if you can't remember or you want to go through and track your route. It's all logged there for you. Obviously what's on the auto route, not on any N roads or any other routes. So the total cost that came through for that, what do you reckon that was for all of those miles? And we did probably at least half of the miles we did were on auto route.
Yeah. So
it came in, it was this one here. So it's €108. Okay, so €108, which I say €108, converted to pounds, it was £108, so I think it was about €120.
still a lot.
It's quite a lot, but that's for roughly roughly about 1,000 miles worth of travelling on the autoroute. And if you haven't been to France and you haven't driven on the, you might sort of have an opinions about paying for your road pricing and whether it's the right or the wrong thing, but there is no doubt about it that the French autoroutes are far superior to British motorways. They're in better condition, the traffic flows better, they manage their roadworks better, and it just makes driving on them really, really pleasurable. And if you're doing long distances, whilst you are paying for it, it does make it easier. So okay, so that's 3 costs. So Eurotunnel, fuel costs, and the autoroute tag. So that's just stuff that it sits to one side. You've got to pay with that anyway. So in total, that came to we're probably around about £700 now, just for the getting there, the fuel, and the travelling. And I suppose if you flip that aside and think, well, if we were going to get a plane and fly to somewhere in France for 2 weeks, how much would the plane tickets be? I know you've got your Ryanairs and your EasyJets, but actually when you factor in the cost of them, we'd probably be paying a couple £100 each for a plane ticket anyway. For 4 of us, that's £800. So we're there or thereabouts the same cost to get to our destination. And we've had all the wonder of being able to drive and see some of these amazing destinations on the way. And I've talked about it before, but I really think that the journey, for me, is as much as part of the adventure and the holiday as actually where we're staying. And I don't know what you think, Harry, when you're sat in the van looking out the window. I know sleeping. I know sometimes you're sleeping, but I guess that when we drive through the mountains and things, it's pretty spectacular, and some of the wonderful scenery, and you wouldn't have seen that if we weren't driving.
No.
Campsites. So of course we had just over 2 weeks camping. Whilst we were away for just over 2 weeks, 2 nights weren't actually camping. So one night was effectively the journey back, because we sort of travelled late into the night coming back. And the first night on our journey down through France, because we did something that we did for the first time last year, we actually stopped up at a French motorway Air, which is one of the service areas, on the way down, and we spent not the whole night, but stopped for around about 4 hours worth of rest in one of these areas. So that was completely free. So you just park up, put the pop top up, got 3 or 4 hours sleep, and they're open all night. There's facilities there to wash, to use the toilet, and we were able to set up if we wanted to light up the stove and make a cup of tea or coffee. But then again, you can a lot of them have got
see much.
Yeah, you couldn't see much because it was the middle of the night, but it was nice just to be able to stop and just have a break on the way down. So that was a free night, if you like. So our first campsite was Meursault in the Burgundy region, and I put videos together of all the campsites that we stayed at. So if you're interested in those, there's video reviews and there's a link for them up here. But we stayed for 3 nights at Meursault, which came in at just under £133. We then, at our next campsite in Sarlat, down in the Dordogne, we spent 6 nights, which came in just under £270. And then our last campsite was Saumur, which was in the Loire Valley.
320.
And this was 5 nights, but interestingly, it was by far and away the most expensive. Yeah, so whilst we spent the least time there, it was 324 325.
A beautiful place.
It was a lovely place.
A lot of places to go to.
That's right. There was a lot to do there. There was a lot to see there. And I think, remember when we were there was the festival.
Yeah.
The vintage festival that weekend. So that may well have pushed the prices up as well. But the total cost for the campsite, so 3, 5, 6, again, was about £750 for...
730.
Right, yes, for the whole of, for all of the nights that we actually stayed. If you then break that down, divide that up, and I 100% get that there are cheaper campsites than the Utopia ones that we stayed at, but for various reasons, and you can see them in our other videos, we really like the Utopia ones because of all the facilities they offer. It worked out at about £50 a night, which for a family of 4 to stay and camp in a beautiful location, I think is pretty good value, and we had a great time at every one of the campsites. They're all different, and again you'll see that in the videos if you'd like to watch those. They're all fantastic. Oh yeah, just one more thing. Please remember to hit the subscribe button, because that makes a big difference to us, and you can do that by clicking the link down here. Don't wait to the end of the video, just hit it down here.
Do it now.
That really helps us grow. We're almost up to, I think we're up to 1,400 subscribers nearly, so I'd love to get to 2,000 as our next goal, but just remember to hit that. Okay, so campsites about £50 a night, so we'll add that to the rolling total. So the next thing was general days out, and when we're out and about camping, we don't live an extravagant lifestyle. We've got a lovely camper van, but we enjoy doing the more simple things. So we're quite happy to go out for a day and not feel that we've got to spend £150 by spending to go to a theme park or such and such. And there's a place for those sorts of things, but our entertainment comes fairly cheaply and fairly cost effectively whilst we're away. So we enjoy visiting chateaus and parks, going and having a wander around the towns. All of those things don't cost a huge amount of money. So what we actually spent on days out and visiting places wasn't a great deal. So having costed all of that up, and I think, how many chateaus did we go and visit? Probably about half a dozen?
7 maybe?
Maybe. We do like a chateau.
Yeah.
So, yeah, me and Mummy do. I hope you enjoy it as well. Yeah. So, total days out and things came to around about £160. So just over £10 a day, which is really good, really. But most of the chateaus and places to visit aren't very much at all. You sort of €5, €6, €7, but they all do a family ticket. A family ticket might be £20, €20. So, but we didn't go every day, and obviously the days where we were travelling, we didn't do anything. And some days what we tended to do, the first day that we arrived at a campsite would be a day that we'd just spend there, just getting settled in and exploring the local area and going have a look around the town and so. So now we move on to the things that were not unexpected, because we knew that were going to happen, but different for this year. So for this year, 2021, our travelling costs include, we made an informed decision before setting off that we were going to have to factor this in, was the cost of testing for COVID. So fortunately, the restrictions for COVID travelling are being lifted more and more as time goes by. In fact, I think only in the last few days in the UK, all bar a very few number of very few number of countries have been taken off the list. So the requirement to isolate and PCR test when you get back has pretty much gone, which is great news, as long as obviously the level of infections don't continue to rise. But we had to pay before going for my 12-year-old son, my 16-year-old son, because he was in that limbo land between being 12 and an adult. He needed to have a PCR test before he went. We had to get this done twice. Video here explaining why, but long story short, we had to get that test done twice. So that was £160 for his test before we left. Before returning from France back to the UK, so before boarding the Eurotunnel, we each, three of us, you didn't have to have one, we had to carry out a lateral flow test in France at a pharmacy before being able to board the Eurotunnel, and that was €75 each, so that was £225. Okay, and again, this is all costs that we knew were coming. And then when returned to the UK, we all needed to carry out a PCR test through mail order, part of the government restrictions at the time, which was for a day 2 return test. So you had to carry out a PCR test, get it sent off and get it certified and authorised on your return, and that came to £244. So in total, so we've got 244, 225, that's almost 500. So we spent almost £600 on the testing.
Lot.
Now you might that is a lot of money. You might think it's a lot of money. It is definitely a lot of money. However, this is what we found. When we were looking at making our decision as to whether we were going to travel or not, it became very clear that if we were to stay in the UK, prices for everything had rocketed up. So accommodation prices had gone up, campsite prices had gone up, availability was less, and if we were going to stay in the UK, do a staycation,
Just
then
stay in the house.
we would.
Camp in the garden.
We could have camped in the garden. Well, our tent's too big for the garden, but we
Camp
could have
in the
camped on the driveway, yeah. But if we'd stayed in the UK, we would have been paying in the region the same again, just to stay here. So we did some research at a couple of campsites. There was one locally that last year would have charged around about £500 for a week away, which is quite expensive for a campsite anyway. But this year they were looking for £1,000 for a week's camping, which is just phenomenal. But market pressures, supply and demand, and remembering that these campsites didn't have an income for lots of last year, so if they need to and can charge that extra, then you have to accept that that's fair. So ultimately, whilst it was an additional cost, I think it was offset by that, and hopefully next season, and for our next camping trip away, then it's something that we won't have to worry about. So when we add all of that together and we come down to the grand total, the grand figure, and this is the thing that everybody wants to know if you haven't got bored and switched off yet, which I hope you haven't. The total that we spent came in at just under, do you want to read the figure out?
£2,268.
That's it. That's in pounds, yeah. Converted it all to pounds, yeah. So £2,268.
A lot of money.
It is a lot of money, but that's for 2 weeks, so just over £1,000 a week. And I said £600 of that we wouldn't normally have spent. Yeah. So you could say strip out that £600, and then we'd be around
about 1,800.
A bit less, about 1,600 roughly, but yeah. But it would be a lot less, and for 2 weeks, over 2 weeks in beautiful France, enjoying the glorious countryside and most importantly some fabulous weather. So
only rained once and it wasn't hard, just drizzle.
That's right, over 2 weeks it only rained once.
Hardly rain at all.
Which was brilliant. So could we do it cheaper? Absolutely we could do it cheaper. Would we do it cheaper? I don't know. One of the things we are thinking about is possibly if not changing the van, changing the configuration of the van, and again there'll be a video about that in due course, but at the moment our camping setup, I'm sure you've seen it, is we take the van and a large tent. What potentially we're looking at doing is ditching the large tent, moving to the van and a smaller tent, or maybe a different slightly larger van where we can be
with a very small tent,
where we can be completely self-contained. And then that will enable us to do two things. Firstly, enable us to, if we want to stop more frequently, because we're spending less time setting up, but also potentially use some of these airs that are all over France and some great places to stop, so we can travel and stop one night here, one night there, whilst we head on to a destination. So we're just gonna spend the next few months just having a think about that, and again I will document our thoughts on the channel here, but that potentially is the option. But I know an awful lot of people speak very highly of the airs system and the municipal campsites in most French towns. So most French towns will have a municipal campsite that cost something like €20 a night to stop at for a family, which would be halving the price. So that's something to explore and investigate going forwards. But long story short, we had an amazing trip, even with the limitations that COVID put on us. Would we do it again? Absolutely. Are we missing it?
Yes.
Absolutely. Would I like to be there this weekend? Absolutely. So, and I don't think you can put a price on the memories. You look back at the experience we had, the places we've been, and one of the biggest praises that I can think for buying one of these vans is that it has taken us to places, and we have seen places that we would never. Did you just give it a kiss?
Yeah.
Oh.
Lovely man.
We have been to and seen places that we would never have done without it. So that gets a big thumbs up from us. Okay, so thank you very much indeed for watching this video. Sorry it's been just a bit of a chatter vlog today, but I hope that if you're thinking about travelling to Europe or France or doing a similar trip that we've done, you found it useful. If you've got far more experience than us, I'd love to hear any tips and tricks that you've got from your adventures travelling around Europe. And then,
Please.
yeah, just let us know anything that we might need to consider, having heard what we're talking about. But please remember to hit the button to like, please remember to hit the button to subscribe, and please remember to join us on the next video. Thanks for watching. Brilliant.
Lovely van.
Come on, Harry.